In your staff report, you've got some supporting documentation that will flow along with the PowerPoint presentation. So if we could move on. One of the things that I want to stress as we move forward is our focus, the Reno Fire Department focus, is going to be to the maintenance of the existing emergency response service level to the citizens of Reno. That's going to be our core focus as we move forward, as we have been moving forward. We have an excellent fire service that delivers an excellent level of service, and we will continue to provide that to the citizens of Reno. We want to make sure that our citizens understand that there will be no change in delivery of service within the city limits. Next slide, please. Current actions. Staff has initiated some dispatch protocols. As you know, staff meets regularly with key partners. What specifically that means is we've met with Daniel Johnson to begin the process of modifying our dispatch protocols to reflect that we will not be going out into the county until such time as we've ironed out some type of automatic aid or mutual aid agreement, but we are beginning that process to ensure that come July 1, we will be ready to flip the switch and not either respond or maintain those services within the community. We've identified 3 alternate locations for our Southside service delivery. As you know, the Walmart station, referred to as Station 14, that is county property. However, the city of Reno staffs that particular station. In lieu of the fact that we've come this far and have not been able to meet with the county and to address some type of lease agreement or either a purchase agreement, we've identified some locations to move into, and we're in the process of making sure that once we finalize the location, it'll be ready to go by early June, so that when we do move out, again, the south end of the city will be properly covered. Staff has drafted, back up. That's why I need control. Staff has drafted some mutual aid agreements for council approval in April. These are the standard mutual aid agreements that typically come to council every year with respect to the Bureau of Land Management, Nevada Division of Forestry, Bureau of Land Management, United States Forestry Service, as well as our partners in Carson, Sparks, and neighboring jurisdictions. I will speak to that in more detail within the staff report. We've also developed a service delivery model after July 1. In other words, what are we going to be providing our citizens after July 1? And I will speak to that in later slides. Also, through the work that Marine McKissick has been doing, we will be requesting a waiver of the existing SAFER grant that currently funds 10 positions. We feel confident that we will receive some type of waiver. We won't know until we finally submit that paperwork and get that notification into FEMA and DHS and get an answer back. Again, Ms. McKissick continues to have a dialogue with the Department of Homeland Security and FEMA with respect to our pending SAFER grant application. And as we move forward, we'll have more information on that. That is for 24 positions. That would be critical and instrumental in helping us deliver service to our community. We've identified our current response capabilities with respect to equipment. As it stands now, we have 19 structural engine companies, 12 brush rigs, 4 ladder companies, and 4 medical response units or rescue rigs. Those are 2-person rigs. Those are, in my opinion, we currently have an adequate fleet to meet our needs. And I've asked our shop superintendent, and overall our fleet is in good shape. We do have some units that do have some high mileage. However, at this time, we feel comfortable that as we progress into the next fiscal year, that we'll be adequately prepared with respect to our equipment. With respect to Station 9, that's the fire station instead. Currently, that's used as our logistics storage facility. We will be moving out the first part of next month, and it will be move-in ready by May 1, so that we'll be able to place apparatus and personnel into that station. There will be some minor modifications. I believe we've had the air conditioning unit stolen out of that building, and we'll make some minor modifications, but it will be move-in ready May 1 to provide the same level of service instead as we provide the existing rest of the citizens of Reno. Staff level discussions on the Truckee Meadow Island protection offer. As council will recall, on November 16th, there was a motion that we would offer the Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District the opportunity for the city of Reno to assume primary response into the Truckee Meadows Islands. And I believe the direction was up to 90% of the fire tax revenue. We've had several discussions, and there's been no response from the county. In essence, what the county has said is that we will address that in a package deal, and I believe we received that today. So there's been no discussion with respect to how they intend to protect, or at least offer to protect, the islands. And lastly, we're preparing for a reduction in force. We've identified a schedule. On the March 28th council date, we will be coming to council with a resolution requesting permission to move forward with a reduction in force. And that'll trigger some civil service analysis, and they'll require 21 days. Of course, HR will have to do some analysis as well. And letters will go out probably in early June with an effective termination date of June 30th. Actually, the letters will go out sooner than that, as soon as we get through the HR process, because we want our employees to know exactly who's going to be affected. Can I get the next slide, please? Currently, we are staffed at 266 positions. Because we don't know what the Truckee Meadows offer to our existing employees is, we don't know how many they intend to hire. We just know that there have been several applicants from our department that have applied. We have asked for specific numbers, and those offers have not been, to my knowledge, been officially tendered to existing employees. We are forced to build our next budget year's plan based on a worst-case scenario. What that means is we will be looking at reducing for the 5 Truckee Meadows stations approximately 60 personnel. We are planning, in the event that we do not get a waiver for the SAFER grant, that's an additional 10 personnel. Because of our $30 million budget, we will have to adjust down our staffing by 10 positions. So that's a total staff reduction of 80 personnel. So as of July 1, 2012, we're looking at an entire shift, or an entire department complement of 186 positions. What that means in terms of apparatus is 12 engines, 12 engines / truck companies, depending on how I like to staff the department, and 1 medical response unit. And if the county elects to hire, for example, 40 employees that are current existing members of our department, we would reduce that staff reduction from 80 to 40. So again, we continue to wait on what the county is going to do, and what the county is going to, how many employees they're going to pick up. But to this date, county has not indicated the number of employees they intend to extend offers to. This is a map that shows all of the red squares, or all of the stations that that are currently within the city of Reno. The green area indicates the Sierra Fire Protection District. The magenta purple area is Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District. Next button, please. Next button, please. That's the station number 9 instead that we intend to open. Next one. Next one. That is our current Southside Station location. Next. Keep going. And one more. One more. Just as a point of reference, one more, please. And one more. As a point of reference, these are the Truckee Meadow Islands that have not been addressed with respect to service delivery by Truckee Meadows. Next slide. The sphere of influence, if you will, for Fire Station 9 will cover the Stead area. That's our most northern, heavily populated area. That's the area that is an absolute. We will staff that station. We will maintain that station. That station will not be a part of our brownout matrix come July 1. Next slide, please. In the south area, that's another station that we will cover, the Demonte Ranch, Collin Ranch area. That is another station that we will not be a part of our brownout matrix. But that will cover our southern district. Next slide. Next one. So what does 12 apparatus and 1 medical response unit bring us? Again, this is a map of the city. This is one of about 8 to 10 different models that we have generated. Again, we are going to look at our threat and our risk based on our time of year, call volume. Our recent standard of cover study indicated that the majority of our call service is into the core of the city, so we want to make sure that we have plenty of assets available and we have plenty of depth of resource to handle the call load that we anticipate within the city of Reno. So again, the northern station in the Stead area will be activated and will cover the north area. We will be working out of the south in an alternate location to cover our southern district. And of course, Station 1 and Station 3, Station 1 on 4th Street and Station 3 on Moana would remain multi-company stations. And then of course the rest are like chess pieces, and we'll move them around based on our threat and risk to our city. Next slide, please. So, issues. It is recommended that we serve notice to the 1991 Auto Aid Mutual Aid Agreement. In your staff report, you will find a copy of the 1991 agreement. There is some question as to whether that agreement ceased to exist due to the fact that we did enter into the interlocal agreement. Legal counsel has recommended that we go ahead and serve notice so that there is no misunderstanding as to whether or not that agreement currently is in force or does exist. Also, we would like to serve notice to vacate Station 14 within 90 days. Currently, and this was a sort of a last-minute add-on, but there was a package offer extended by the county, and you will find that as an attachment. You'll find the staff report behind my staff report, and this is the staff report that is dated March 9th, 2012. It goes into some very generic details with respect to what the county has offered. And as I understand, early this morning, the county delivered a letter to the mayor officially tendering that offer. It goes into detail with respect to staff, automatic aid, mutual aid. There are some questions with respect to that. And then lastly, as part of that packet, you will find the October 18th Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District, Sierra Fire Protection District analysis of fire services. This basically details how Truckee Meadows intends to staff their stations. Draw your attention to page 21, where they speak about performance objectives not being met without the city of Reno, increased response times, the utilization of 3-person crews, and on the last page, the potential of reduction in depth of resources. These are all concerns with respect to my office and their impact to our staff if we were to enter into an automatic aid agreement. And of course, per direction, council asked us to reply to the Collin Ranch Homeowners Association, and there is a copy of that letter to confirm that we did reply to that. Next slide, please. In summary, staff report offers several options with respect to auto aid. Option A is at this time not to enter into any auto aid agreement until we get further information from the county. Option B is the current auto aid, which excludes primary response into the Truckee Meadows Islands. I have a concern with that in that our current auto aid would require us to go into Wadsworth, Winnemucca Ranch Road. It would require us to send a unit. If the closest unit is currently available on an emergency response, we would have to reach into our city resources to send a unit. So I do have a concern with that. A third option, option C, is auto aid with the direction and time limits. Specifically, that means we would extend our resources, if available, within a mile of our jurisdiction and up to 2 hours or 3 hours, depending on what type of agreement we reach. Option D is an auto aid agreement that mirrors the Raven model. As you recall, the county has a helicopter where he charges a base annual rate, and once that unit is utilized, he charges a per hour rate. We could adopt a similar model where the county basically pays the city of Reno for automatic aid, and then each time we extend that automatic aid, it's billed at an hourly rate per unit, per truck, etc. Concerns with respect to automatic aid. The number one concern per direction of the city manager has been equity. He has directed me to make sure that no matter what we do, it has to be equitable to the citizens of Reno. One of the concerns is that the Reno taxpayers would be subsidizing county emergency response with respect to the Truckee Meadows Island and other areas. There has been no plan by the county to address Collin Ranch, Hidden Valley, the Zalezi Lane, Windy Hill area. That is a concern. Recently, the county elected to eliminate 3 of their chief officers from their response plan. They were initially planning on running a 2 battalion chief system, keeping in mind that the Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District goes from the Oregon border along the California border all the way down to Washoe County. I have a concern in that typically most fire chiefs develop a department that's capable of responding to 2 simultaneous events at the same time. We currently have that ability, and we will continue to have that ability as we move forward. My concern is that if there were an event in the north and their chief officer was committed, and we have another event separate from that event in the south, for example, there would be no chief officer to command that emergency response, and I would have serious concerns with regard to the safety of our crews responding to an event where there is no supervision from a dedicated chief officer. Their deployment plan has not been published. I don't know what they intend to dispatch. Do they intend to strip one of their 3-person engines and have one of the individuals deliver a water tender? There's just too many questions with respect to their deployment plan. There is an inability to meet their county performance objectives. What that means is it's going to take them longer to get there with less resources. Again, as we enter into an automatic aid agreement, I want to ensure that our forces, if they are first due in, are basically not there for an extended period of time without any type of backup. And lastly, I'm concerned about the depletion of Reno assets to augment county responses. Currently, we do operate as a unified organization. As a good example, the Washoe fire, we were immediately able to dispatch. We had multiple units within the first 17 minutes. That ability will go away. If we enter into an automatic aid agreement, I want to make sure that first and foremost, the city of Reno and the citizens of Reno are protected before we reach out to our neighbors. And this is the same philosophy that Carson, Sparks, and every other neighboring jurisdiction embraces when they come to help us. They ensure first that their city is protected before they send an asset or a resource to help the city of Reno. And again, the increase in response times to initiate an interior attack because they are going to be operating with a 3-person crew is a concern. If we are first due in, our people will go in and they would be augmenting our teams with a 3-person crew. And again, these are just a snapshot of some of the concerns I have with respect to automatic aid. And we need certain answers from the TM system. And hopefully, I hope to engage with their new chief whenever he comes on board, or the county coordinator to get some specific answers. As you know, the county has maintained that they want to submit a package deal, and they have done that today with respect to leasing Station 14 and automatic aid. And they have they're leveraging some staff-related issues, which I have a concern with, So, again, this will fall on council for that policy decision. Lastly, again, council directed me to engage in discussions with the county with respect to the Truckee Meadows Islands, with respect to utilizing 90% of their taxable fire tax revenue, and there has been absolutely no discussion on that level. The only answer we get is that it would be forthcoming in a package deal. And that concludes my PowerPoint. I'd like to refer to my staff report and go to page 4. These are staff's recommendations with respect to mutual aid. Agreements have been drafted consistent with standard mutual aid agreements and similar to those that we have been previously approved by council. These drafts include agreements with federal, state, and regional partners. The issue that needs to be resolved and the direction I need from this board is that our typical mutual aid documents contain a 24-hour clause. Recently, the city of Sparks went to a 12-hour clause, and I would recommend that we adopt that model. It forces the host jurisdiction to release our resources in a more timely manner instead of keeping them there for the full 24 hours. However, it does allow us a billing mechanism after 12 hours. That would be the most significant change to our existing mutual aid agreements, with the exception of our federal partners. With our federal partners, I'm recommending that we stay with the 24-hour time limit. That enables the city of Reno to utilize federal assets, and they are responsible for those assets. As an example, when we do airdrops, typically those airdrops cost anywhere from $5,000 to $8,000 per drop. During the first 24 hours of a firefighting effort, those costs would be directly back billed to the federal agency that requested them. After 24 hours, we go into a cost-sharing mode where we decide how much of it was our jurisdiction, how much of it was county, et cetera. So with the exception of our federal partners, I recommend that we stay with the 24-hour rule, and we default down to the 12-hour rule with our mutual aid contracts. With respect to automatic aid agreements, due to the uncertainty and the questions that I have with respect to deployment, there's safety issues, the battalion chief issues, how they intend to provide service to the islands, as we call them. I'm recommending that at this time we do not offer or do not enter into any type of automatic aid agreement, because there are certain questions and concerns I feel that I, as the fire chief, and you, as this policy board, need to have answered. So I'm requesting that we do not enter into any automatic aid agreements. And lastly, I'm recommending, due to the fact that the 1991 agreement is currently out there, there is a clause in the last page that you'll find in your packet that states that the automatic aid agreement continues unless one party places another party on notice. There's been considerable talk about whether or not that contract is active. I recommend that we go ahead and initiate I believe it's section 12 of the last page, and serve notice that that contract would cease. I'd be more than happy to take any questions.
And by the way, Chief, I just got a copy of whatever they did yesterday. It was just delivered to me. What time did it come in this morning or this afternoon?
That's the chief's presentation. This is the chief's presentation.
Oh, okay. Well, I still haven't received it.
Our letter came in about noon.
We got a copy of a letter at noon, okay. Well, just to bring you up a little bit, Council, as y'all know, Councilman Hashef and I have been meeting with Commissioner Larkin and Commissioner Jung about trying to work on fire. Not that we had the authority to do anything, we were just talking. We met with them, we met with staff, we met with the unions from the Sierra Fire District, we met with the Union 731. We came up with things. Commissioner Larkin said that it wasn't four-man crews, it was about flexibility. And we met on this for several weeks, off and on. We had meetings. Mr. Larkin said that we would give the firefighters, the professionals, a bucket of money to decide how to spend that money and come up with it. And so the unions and the leadership and the chiefs and everybody got together on how they would do it, came up with flexibility, did all these different things. At the meeting, they finally reported back to us. Everybody seemed very, very excited and thought it was a good project. Everybody said that they liked it, they thought they could live with it. Later on, it was presented to the county commissioners in a closed-door session, and it was never presented by the unions, the Sierra Fire District, or Truckee Meadows, or the Reno Fire Department. So they decided that it wasn't sustainable. But under there is a paragraph there that there would be some additional cost of about $2.1 million, but they gave 20 items saying if you adjust this, do this, do this, do that, that erases that $2.1 million shortfall or everything. So I was told that Mr. Larkin did try to preach to him. I wish they would have let the the firefighters present their case. That's what they did with the staff and the management. Under their proposal, the professionals, and that's all the fire crews, the chiefs and everybody, every station would have had 4-man crews. They would have given the chief flexibility to move people from station to station, or to not call somebody back for a couple of hours, or gave all the flexibility to it. So really, I'm starting to feel that it was a wasted 3 or 4 meetings we had. I'll let Mr. Hashef, if he wants to, comment. It's really come down to now, they say it's from an equity standpoint on their side. Well, it's from an equity standpoint on our side also. They want us to continue with auto aid like it is today, but they don't want to pay for it. They want us to cover Hidden Valley and Collin Ranch. And one of their individuals, when I asked him, I said, by the way, now your Sun Valley is going to cover Hidden Valley, is that right? I said, where's your second vehicle come from? Might be Verdi. So if they had a fire in Hidden Valley, they might have to wait until the guy got from Verdi all the way in. I was very disappointed we didn't get more favorable input, and later I'll be discussing this with the press and probably having a press conference in the next day or so to cover it, and also to have the firefighters present their case of why they think it would work. And it did work, it would work, and it would solve everything. I'm starting to think they talk about wanting to have a regional fire service. Well, you already got Truckee Meadows and Reno, 2 of the biggest fire agencies in this community, already together. The one blind wolf was the Sierra Fire. And I'm now convinced that the State Department of Division of Forestry had a party the day Washoe County took over Sierra Fire and danced in the streets in Carson City because they got rid of that albatross. And it has been one that is eating them up. They're short of money on that every year, and that's the thing. The one thing that I think that everybody has to understand, that over the last 12 years, we have saved the citizens of Washoe County between $40 and $45 million. $40 and $45 million. They don't want to look at it that way. If you save $40 to $45 million, there ought to be something you can do to adjust if there's a problem. You want to bring Sierra in? Figure out what you got to do. They know that they're going to have to raise the taxes in the unincorporated area. They're building a fire station that I think they didn't need. They could have built a mile road up at the top and entered Arrow Creek 90% faster than what they were doing before. So we will be going in this. This so-called proposal that I saw is nothing but just smoke. It does nothing for us, but maybe for a year it would help something. They're messing with over, if you say there's 80 people, Chief, that's 4 to a family, that's 320 individuals' lives that they're messing with. They're doing this in the back rooms. They're not doing it out in public. They're not doing it with us. We've requested meetings with them every day, and they have not come forward and met with us. They have declined to. We asked for a joint meeting. They don't want to do it until we have an agenda-setting meeting. Well, Sparks doesn't want to talk about fire, so probably at the agenda-setting meeting, I'm hoping we'll talk about senior citizens and we'll talk about animal control. Fire needs to be discussed between Washoe County and the city of Reno. And one of the commissioners said he was appalled that we were having to induce us to take these things, or whatever word he used. But it's very irritating to me that you're trying to use human lives, the bodies of our firemen, to come up with a way to balance a budget. I wish that we had the authority to ask for an audit. We know they've got an $8 million plus surplus. So I don't know what's wrong with our system if we're saving $40 to $45 million between the 2 of us. Now, if we break down Sierra and brought them in, they wanted that. That's what they asked for at these private meetings Mr. Hashef and I had with our staff, with the money people and everybody else. So we gave them what they wanted. But yet, they didn't have the firemen go in and explain it. They tried to have somebody else explain it and never went out. Because they cannot do what they want to do with Collin Ranch and Hidden Valley without us doing something, and we should be paid back for it. The citizens of Reno should not have to foot that bill. The thing that amazes me is probably 60–70% of the voters for a Washoe County commissioner live in the city of Reno and Sparks. And yet they act like this is some kind of game. This is not a game. We're talking about human lives and people. Somebody's going to get killed or somebody's house is going to burn down. Talk to us in public about it. Don't send me another smoke and screen mirror. I don't like them. I can't stand them. Come talk to me, sit with this council and talk to us and let us work it out. And it's very frustrating when they won't. The chief goes to a closed-door meeting. I said, hell, I'd like to come. Oh, I bet you would. Well, yes, I would. If you're going to take my chief, take me too. But they didn't do that. They let him have 4 or 5 minutes and let him go. So the smoke screens that they're playing, they're putting Jeopardy and Hidden Valley, Collin Ranch, and the Windy Hill area. They're putting them in danger. And I'm not whining. They want to go. Hey, let them go. They've made up their mind. We're going ahead and set up. I'm sorry for the 80 people that we're going to have to do because of this. I think we'll get some help when we go to Washington on the SAFER grants, and we're going to push that. But, Chief, you've done everything to set up our people and get set up to go, and I respect that of you very much. But I did want to bring up the rest of the council where Mr. Heshef and I had met with them. They wanted confidential meetings while they've been going out and talking and everything else. Well, I decided to tell the side of the story here this afternoon, and I will be doing a press conference sometime, not as the city council, but as the mayor, meeting with the different staff members and stuff, pointing out and having the fire people explain how they could set it up, how it would work, doesn't take out of their reserves, does not put them in deeper debt. If they would follow some of the areas that they say, there's some areas we can save money in to offset that 2.1. And so they don't have to jeopardize anybody's jobs and jeopardize their lives because they're not going into a burning building unless we know there's a person in there. But if it's that, then they're going to wait for the other crew before they go in and fight the fire. In another 3 to 5 minutes, the whole house will be burned to the ground. And I'm sorry, got on a tyrant here, and I just wanted to get it out. I wanted you to understand what we've been doing and how hard we've been trying to work with them, how our union has been working very hard, bending over, giving up things, and working with them. And so, you know, they want to go do what they want to do, then they need to tell the citizens of the jeopardy they're putting them in, because it is wrong. It is wrong. Now, they want to give us the money they collect for fire in Hidden Valley and Collin Ranch and Windy Hill. Bring it on. We'll take care of them. But they want us to do the same thing today that we're doing with no payback. And that's not going to fly. And it's not the way the citizens of Reno should be protected. Mr. Hashef, you have anything to say? Yes, I do have a couple of public comments. I'm sorry.
I'll give my speech, but it'll be less than a minute.
Okay, I didn't mean to get, well, I did too. Ms. Surpriser, you have anything?
I just want to ask a couple questions, if I could, Chief, and because I think there is a bit of confusion out in the public. If we take, because the big argument from the county so far is that the current consolidated agreement is not sustainable, and you're the chief for the entire department right now. Can you just touch on, as far as the Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District, which that's all we're talking about in this consolidated agreement, the revenues that they're bringing in, does that sustain the cost that we have with the consolidated matrix if the status quo, if nothing were to change?
Their numbers have changed. Initially, they were projecting a 17, I believe it was either a 16 or a $17 million operating revenue, and they were trying to get to below $11 million I would have to go back and research what their taxable revenues are. I know that about a month ago, their financial analyst came out with a new set of numbers based on a lower projection, but I can certainly get those numbers for you. I know that even with their existing projections, the most current ones, that they will have to dip into their reserves to remain sustainable even at a 3-person staffing level.
Okay, so that, I mean, has that changed over the years as far as that revenue? I mean, obviously, the revenue source has been coming in, but the main drain, and I think the mayor hit on it, was with the Sierra Fire Protection District. So I guess what I'm getting at is, even according to the county's own staff report, they're going to have to pay $1.2 million to set up this agency. They had to fire, again, getting away
It
Mm.
from...
started at 700,000, then they went up to 1.2 million to stand this up, and it's looking like it's going to be closer to 1.7 million.
So even with those numbers, though, Mr. Mayor, I mean, and what I think in 731 will address this, but getting back to what you said, that they're making an offer that would be sustainable under the Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District revenue source. But getting back to that chart, if you could put that up on the, what the required RIFs would be. Can you put
Correct.
that back up?
It's a worst-case scenario. We're at 266, and we would be required to rift out, or at least place 80 members. That one? Mm-hmm. Yes,
So
ma'am.
essentially, with the county's action yesterday, we would be looking at potentially a third of the firefighters' workforce being reduced.
That's correct.
And then on the current staffing, the 266, what is that level, I mean, year-to-year history, Chief, of where we are as far as current staffing levels? I mean, we've already had, what was it, 300 and...
We've laid off in excess of 50 personnel. And over the past, well, since I've been here, it was right at 50. I think we laid off an additional 10 to 12 prior to my arrival. We are at some probably early 1980 staffing levels. So, yeah, we're down to a point where we are at a minimum level in terms of providing service. That's why I am concerned about automatic aid and depleting our resources to augment a different agency. But I can get those exact staffing numbers year by year, and I can go back 10 years. Actually, I've got that upstairs.
Yeah, and then, and I'll follow up on that question of primary service provider, because I think you made a good point on that. But the other issue is, Chief, on the staffing, so we're at 1980 staffing levels.
Correct.
How does that work? Because the county, again, is relying on the city providing that service to the outlying areas. But if that doesn't happen, then let's just take Hidden Valley, for example. And the nearest response time in their model is Sun Valley.
Correct.
And how many minutes is that?
I would probably, I'm going to just guess off the top of my head, anywhere from 12 to 15 minutes.
Okay, so
From
even
the second doing engine, correct.
So 12 minutes on the first response. But if a structure was burning, then that engine company couldn't even respond because it's a 3-man engine crew, correct?
Correct. They can't do anything. They can't enter the structure unless there's a known life threat or risk. So they would have to wait until that second unit arrives before they can make an interior attack.
And have they said where that second unit is coming from?
They have not, that was one of my points. They've not indicated their deployment plan, how they intend to, if they have a fire in the North Valleys, do they intend to send all of their stations, 3 of their stations, 2 of their stations, and rely on volunteers, 2 of their stations rely on the city of Reno? That's a concern, and they have not published how they intend to deploy their assets.
They've shared none of those things
Yeah,
with
I
us.
guess
Yeah.
what I'm getting at, Mr. Mayor, even with the 12 minutes, though, from Sun Valley, you still couldn't, the firefighters couldn't really respond to an actual burning structure. So you could be talking a longer than a 20-minute response time before
Correct.
those firefighters could start responding. So let's take the example of Collin Ranch, Chief. What would happen under the new model that's being proposed by the county if the automatic agreement were?
We would send our first due-in engine. That'd be a 4-person crew. They would probably arrive in under 8 minutes, most likely within about 6 minutes. Their second engine would likely come from Verdi. We're probably talking
That's
about,
under the current model?
Oh, no, under the current model.
The
we would
current
send-
model?
Yeah, we would send 2 of our engines immediately, and they would augment that with their Verdi station. And depending on what the first arriving, if the first arriving crew sees smoke and flames, they would upgrade that, and they would receive additional Reno assets.
That's what I think we're missing, Mr. Mayor, when we're going out to the public, is what's the difference? And I think because we've had those 2 traumatic events with the fires, the Collin Ranch fire and the Washoe Valley, is under the existing model. Here's the Collin Ranch response. Under the county's proposed model, here's how the response would have been different to that event, because I think that's what we're missing, because the public's reading back and forth in the paper, the mutual aid, primary aid. I don't think the majority of people comprehend
understand.
the magnitude of what's going on, and I agree with you, Mr. Mayor, your passionate plea there. But this is, I mean, really it comes down to egos and what's happened, and you're dealing with public safety.
That's
I
right.
mean, bottom line. So, Chief, we need, really, with the county's action, we're potentially looking at 80 less firemen out fighting fires, which would be, I don't know what that would be, 1950 levels of firefighting
Close to-
staffing in this community. But also a matrix, I think, for the council of what the difference in response time would be. And then under the model of the county, that what it's actually costing them to set up this new agency, Mr. Mayor, the 1-7. And then not only that, you have the whole premise behind consolidation. And I didn't have the benefit, I don't think any of us here did it, other than Councilman Hashchev of the and Councilman Ayazi on the consolidated agreement. But the premise behind it is you reduce the upper management staff.
Yep.
So now you're looking at a model where under deconsolidation, which the county is proposing, I don't know how that makes sense when you have the people not on the line, Mr. Mayor. That's another thing we're not getting out in the public, and why we need that matrix. You have fewer people on the line, and essentially under this deconsolidation, you're taking the highest management paid positions, and you're going to have to re-implement that. So, for example, we already have a fire chief, which is you, Mr. Hernandez, who is the fire chief over the entire consolidated fire department. Under this new department, they're going to hire another fire chief. So again, they say one thing at the commission meeting, Mr. Mayor, and coming down to personalities here, but the facts don't back up what they're saying, and that's the problem. There's no factual data. Tell me how having 2 or 3 fire chiefs in this region makes any sense for a jurisdiction our size. And that's what you have. You have the management costs involved in setting up this whole new department, which makes no sense at all when each local government's struggling for funds right now, and you have less rank and file staff who are actually out there fighting fires, and more management staff that's needed for a new department when we're consolidated in the first place, Chief.
I couldn't agree with you more, council member, and I want to touch on a point that you made early on. There's been a lot of talk about the city of Reno going into the Truckee Meadows areas and number of responses, and there's been talk about the number of responses that the TM system comes into the city of Reno. I think they've talked about 1,300 responses and versus our 800. Well, the fact of the matter is statistics are unique things. You need to look at those statistics globally, and I would caution this council to do that. When you send a single asset to a response, that's a single asset. Yes, it counts as a response, but when you look at it globally, you need to look at what do the other partners at the table bring with respect to assets. When there is a event in the north districts, for example, or in Verdi, the Verdi station will respond, but so will 2, 3 Reno engines, as well as a command officer, as well as a safety officer, as well as a mechanic. So there's significant value to depth of resources, and by the county's own staff report, they admit that their depth of resources will be limited, and that's why I have high concerns with respect to entering into any type of automatic aid until we get certain questions answered. And first and foremost, the safety of our first responders, and of course maintaining the highest level of service to the citizens of Reno. That is our focus, and that's where we're going. But you make some very good points.
And Mr. Mayor, just one other question, Chief, on getting back to your presentation and the city. I'm sorry, where is it on the slide? I just got that. On the. Just for the sake of argument, if we're talking about entertaining the county's offer, how could we possibly do that when you're looking at an 80-person staff reduction due to the, so let me get this straight, they're going to pay more and we have 80 less firefighters on the street.
Potentially.
Then
80.
the county, how could we possibly legally even enter into the agreement for the, I'm sorry, I'm looking for that slide that you had.
Go back. Just go back. Keep going.
You had
Forward.
where you talk about how we,
Is it that slide?
no, but essentially, how could we potentially even entertain the county's agreement? Because we're going to be at skeleton staffing with the deconsolidation, as you pointed out.
Correct.
So if we have to respond, be a primary response for another agency, let's just take Hidden Valley. So a fire erupts in Hidden Valley, and it takes a lot of our resources, and then a fire starts in the city of Reno's jurisdiction. What would happen then under what the county's proposing?
We would be depleting Reno assets to augment the Truckee Meadows system, and our citizens would be receiving an increased response time and a lower level of service.
So essentially, we wouldn't be able to take care of a fire that started
that's
within
correct.
the city of Reno jurisdiction.
We would, but it would be an increased response time because we're having to pull assets from farther away because those initial assets have been deployed into the county area. But you make a valid point. That's correct.
Okay. That's all I have for now, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Ms. Zedra.
Thank you, Chief. First of all, it's more a comment, and I should probably save it until that point, but I do believe that you and your entire team need to be recognized for the professional, responsible skills and attitude that you've brought to this entire process. I know it's been suggested that we're squawking just because it's going to we're going to lose money. That the county apparently is suggesting that they've been, a profit center for us, which is obviously erroneous. But thank you for bringing that professional spirit to it and bringing us a solid plan in severe absence of plans and details from the county. We will be whole come July 1, and our citizens of Reno will be covered. And they'll notice no difference in the service that we're able to provide to them. So you need huge recognition for that. There is the concern about the 80 people who could be eliminated. And I guess this is maybe even more for legal than you, Chief, but in the interlocal, don't I remember somewhere in there language about the county would be required to bring back the employees that came into the marriage?
Tracy Chase, Reno City Attorney's Office. I don't have the exact language in front of me, so I'm paraphrasing. The interlocal agreement says the county will offer work. It doesn't say they shall bring back, and they will only offer it to former district employees. Currently, the chief can indicate how many district employees that were employed at the district at the time of the transfer to the city of Reno are still employed. But I think maybe 40, 45, Chief, if I'm accurate. And so those, the county has put out indications they could come and apply, and I don't know how many have applied or those circumstances. We have asked for that information from the county, but they've indicated those are personnel issues, and they did not provide that information to us. So we don't have any indication, like the chief said, on really how much of the city of Reno workforce they will be taking on. What the consolidated agreement does do that assists the council and the city is it says the county shall pay a proportionate share of the adopted consolidated budget as amended. So it would be legal's recommendation that if we have to downsize, that the cost of those downsizing and the costs associated with payouts be included as part of the adopted consolidated budget, amend it so it's included in this year, and then the county would be required to pay their proportionate share.
And Chief, I believe you've reported to us previously that you know of 4 or 5 or 6 employees.
Existing? For the record, Mike Hernandez, Reno Fire Chief. We currently, I'm going from memory here, we have 41, possibly 42 existing former Truckee Meadows employees. Of those, I believe 5 applied, 1 declined the offer, and 4 have potentially accepted. There's some gray area there with respect to whether that was an offer, but I know that of the existing 40 or so existing former TM employees, 5 did apply and 4 were tendered offers, and whether or not they have been accepted or whether the employee has accepted that offer, we just don't know. We've asked the county for some specific numbers, and we have not gotten any type of reply other than some very generic numbers. These are the number of people that applied, et cetera.
And this question speaks to your concern for and your recommendation that we give you direction to not enter into an aid agreement immediately until you receive some more specific details, particularly as it relates to deployment. So the question is, we're less than 100 days away from the start of the new operations, the City of Reno's operations and Truckee Meadows operations, 100 days away. What's the likelihood that they will be able to stand up that department with experienced, qualified personnel that exist in the 80 people that they're throwing out on the street right now? And that speaks to your concern of not wanting to enter into that kind of an agreement unless you know the quality of the deployment and the experience level that will be going into that same venue that our people would be going into.
As to whether or not they're going to be able to stand up their department, they've indicated that they will be ready to go July 1. I have some reservations about that. With respect to the automatic aid agreements that we enter into with our other neighboring agencies, I know Chief Giommi in Carson. I know the level of his command staff capabilities. I know what his capabilities are. I'm comfortable entering into agreements with Carson. The same goes for Chief Flock in the city of Sparks. They run efficient systems, well-trained, well-equipped. We have a very good open line of communication because the Truckee Meadows system is, in essence, starting from scratch. I'm not very familiar with their newly appointed chief. We've had very limited discussions. Again, I don't know what their deployment model looks like. I don't know how they intend to get assets to the emergencies, how they intend to backfill, who they intend to backfill with. If they have multiple events, how do they intend to address multiple events that don't warrant assistance from California, for example. So these are the type of questions I'd like to sit down with the county and get answered as we move forward. I think it's incumbent upon the Truckee Meadows system to sit with us and say, this is our plan. And I think it speaks to what the mayor and Councilmember Ayazi and Councilmember Safraza have asked for in the past, is a joint meeting to discuss delivery, options, et cetera. But at this point, because we have no knowledge of what their system is going to look like, I have to build my model specifically for the city of Reno, and I have to build it based on a worst-case scenario that we will not have any employees transfer over to the TM system. And as they do, then we will reduce the number of reduction in force notices of our existing employees. It's I got to tell you, from my level, it's an absolutely horrible way to do business. It's wrong to use the employees as a chip, if you will. It's just a bad way. It's a bad business model. It's a bad system to have to work under.
And Chief, could you describe the process, the plans that are in place to stand up 9 and what is currently 14 but will be 12, City of Reno Station 12 out south? And I believe, just for anybody who may have been listening, when you talked about 12 on one of the maps, I think you said Collin Ranch in that description as well, and that really is just Damani and South Meadows.
Correct.
Not Collin Ranch.
Correct.
So anyone who may have heard that and thought, oh, okay, we're covered.
No.
Not so.
And I want to be clear with this council
So
and
if
the
you
mayor
can
and the manager.
describe how it is we know we're going to be opening 9 and our new 12.
Correct. And the reason I specifically isolated Station 9 in the north is because currently that area is served by Truckee Meadows Station 13. After July 1, that'll be a 3-person station, and that is City of Reno real estate, if you will. And I have been charged with protecting the citizens of the City of Reno, so that station will be stood up, and it will provide the same level that the rest of the city receives. That's a 4-person crew, along with the depth of resources that we will be able to provide after July 1. With respect to our south station,
And again,
We're 90
identify where
days
that is for
I'm sorry?
we talk about it as numbers.
Station 14, that's the Walmart station on Old
On
Virginia
Damani
Road.
Ranch Parkway.
Correct, Damani Ranch Parkway.
Right.
We're 90 days out. And because we have not reached some type of accord, we have consistently asked either to lease or purchase the existing station, and it has been conveyed to the city that that'll be part of a package deal. This council has elected not to accept any type of a package deal. We got to move forward, and we are moving forward. We have developed a plan to stand up a temporary station until we can firm up our finances with respect to building a more permanent facility out in the south. But our goal is to be able to provide service to our south citizens. And again, as the first slide indicated, our primary focus is going to be the highest level of service to the citizens of Reno, first and foremost. We no longer will have the luxury to reach out and service beyond our district. That will fall upon the new system, and we have asked for some type of information in terms of how they're going to provide service out there and what their depth of resources is going to be, what is their plan, and frankly, I think they're still formulating that plan. So at this point, I think it would be prudent for us to continue to focus on the citizens of Reno, to continue to move forward. It's grossly unfortunate, and it keeps me up at night that we have to actually issue reduction in force notices to possibly 80 employees. But this is the position we're in. It's a difficult path. It's one that we have to address. It's one that we were placed on. But this is where we are. This is where we need to move forward from this point on.
And again, just for the confidence for the people in the extreme north and extreme south of the city jurisdiction, city limits, we're just signatures away. We've got 3 options. For the south, we'll select the one that we like best, and we're ready to move. There are
That's correct.
no delays, and we've obviously got the location in the north already at 9.
Yes, ma'am. And thanks to City Manager Klinger. He's been working diligently with Bill Thomas in identifying a south station, a permanent south station location. We are just looking at different options in terms of how we're going to fund that station, and we're very, very close And hopefully, within the next 30 to 60 days, we'll be bringing forward a plan with respect to a more permanent structure. But again, as I mentioned, we're 90 days out. July 1, we need to be able to provide service to the citizens of Reno. We have not been able to reach an accord with respect to leasing the existing stations, so we are, to coin a phrase, we're moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. You know, a while ago, and then I'll turn it over to Mr. Hesheffer. Do you want me to have public comment before you, Mr. Hesheffer? Okay, let me just, I want us to look into also, because several developers came to us years ago wanting us to annex certain sections, and I want to look into the de-annexation of Verdi, Boomtown, Verdi, in that area. I want to look into the annexation of de-annexing Cold Springs in that area where developers came before us telling us they would have some big projects going. They didn't, they fizzled. So maybe we de-annex those and stuff. Also, there's been two different studies. I know the one, the Damani study, says that they can't do it. It's not good. They don't recommend it. We've asked them what their plan B is. They won't share it. We've asked them what their staffing is. They won't share it. So until they decide to open up, there's not much we can do except do what you do. The chief also and the union, the firefighters all got together and came up with a way to work with the volunteer fire departments also on training, how they could help train them better. They could come in certain sections, do different things, but they came up with a real flexible way to help train and work with the volunteer fire departments that are very valuable to certain areas of us. Chief, the 1,300 calls they keep referring to, my understanding those are calls from years ago. These are not recent calls, are they?
I believe the data was generated approximately, I'm going to say about 1.5 to 2 years ago.
I was,
And keep in mind, Mr. Mayor, some of those calls were multi-dispatch calls. These are calls where the Verdi station responded into Boomtown, and we also dispatched our Station 11 on Mayan.
right.
So, you know, there's a little mixed data there.
So we don't need their station to call on us at Boomtown. We can be in
We
there
can
in 8 to
service
10
that with the
minutes
Mayan
anyway.
station. And again,
Okay.
I want to emphasize that the numbers only touch the tip of the iceberg. There is the issue of depth of resources. When you have a call, you're sending one asset, and we're sending 3. So there's that issue as well.
Also, I want to say something. Everything that I've witnessed, and I've taken over 8, 9, maybe different hotel casinos and trouble and stuff, and I'm watching the county do a lot of things that I see private enterprise do when they shuffle money around and things. I told the county, I'd heard rumors that they have serious financial trouble. I was in a meeting with the manager and some other people. I told them, hey, let's work this out. Let's see what we can do to help you. But if you look at the water company, we begged them at Truckee Meadows to merge with us so they wouldn't build this $25 million plant that they were funding out of their general fund. Well, all of a sudden, now they want Truckee Meadows to take over that water company and the $25 million in debt. The Incline Village is a $40 million hit plus. Ballardini Ranch was $30 million plus. The Damani treatment plant they were going to build, in my understanding, they spent about $15 million and never did anything with that. And now they want to take animal control and move it over to the sheriff's department so they have a dedicated source of income. And I'm hoping that'll be something we'll discuss at a meeting because I want to know what's happening to that $4 or $5 million surplus that was there. And I'm not saying the sheriff did it, but the county's moved it over because they got a dedicated source and they got a $4 or $5 million surplus to play with. And why they cut back on animal control and everything else. And but those are the things I've got to say, and I'm going to shut up now. Dennis Jacobson. You're first on the ballot, sir.
Actually, if I could defer to my vice president first.
Okay. I've heard of him. Mr. Voskamp.
Mr.
You had a
Mayor.
lot of good conversations with Mr. Larkin during our meetings and things.
I did. I had the pleasure of being with you. For the record, Jeff Voskamp, Vice President, Local 731. I also represent the X-2487 members of Truckee Meadows Fire. Council members, Mr. Manager, Mr. Mayor. I did have that opportunity to be in that room with you to talk about what we perceived was going to be the regional fire department. We still believe in that plan. We think it's a great plan. It increases the level of service, and it does break even and does not dip into any of the reserves of any of the entities. We can get into that another time. I know I'm on public topic for this. Unfortunately, you guys brought up a lot of things that I want to hit. One of them is the county has never made an offer to the XTM guys. I'm one of them. They've offered, the people that have been offered actually applied for promotions over there. When they went in, they were told, yeah, that's great, but we don't want you for a promotion. By the way, if you want your old job, you can have it back, maybe. So nobody's been offered a job over there. They have not fulfilled the obligations of the interlocal, in our opinion. So just that on the record. But I apologize for digressing. What I'm really here to talk about is this automatic aid agreement. And one of the things is, as a firefighter, the tones go off, we just go. It doesn't matter where the house is. It doesn't matter whose house is. It doesn't matter the socio-economic figures, anything. We just go, put out the fire, take care of the person, doesn't matter. And most of the time, automatic aid agreements, it doesn't concern us, above our pay grade, so to speak. But in this one case, I spoke to the county commission the other day, very unconscionable, the only word I can come up with, to actually cause the chaos of 80 layoffs and then try to use those employees as a bargaining chip. It's unfathomable. I can't even think of another automatic aid agreement anywhere that does that. One of the things I really would like to impress, and it looks like I don't have to impress it that hard, is if we're going to sign an automatic aid agreement, let it be about what it's supposed to be about, service and service levels and cost efficiencies and cost structures going back and forth, not firefighters. And these firefighters are the same ones that fought the Collin fire. These firefighters are the same ones that fought the Washoe fire, that fight a trash fire, that take care of somebody who has a heart attack. They are not in the game of an automatic aid agreement. And to stick them in that is, like I said, it's just unconscionable. I urge you to not sign any agreement that uses any of your employees, the members that I represent, as a bargaining chip. Thank you very much.
Mr. Jacobson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Manager Klinger, Council. I think Jeff stole most of my thunder, but I will speak on behalf of this membership that I represent, your employees, and the document that was, I hate to grace it with the word proposal for the county, but I guess we'll use that for today. My membership, from its most senior person to its most junior person, would like the council to know we have reviewed this, as you have, in a very short period of time. Look at it in two aspects. The first aspect is the financials. We believe, from our review, that they're going to seem very weighted to the county. They're certainly suspect, as many of the county staff reports have been, certainly full of a number of assumptions, and quite frankly, we don't believe are a very good value to the citizens of Reno whatsoever. But again, that is staff's job. It's not above our, as I said, above our pay grade. Our concern is the effect of our membership. The unbelievable public address by the county to now wage some sort of a leverage of employees who, as Jeff said, serves this community day in and day out. As we speak today, they're servicing the community. They took care of the tremendous tragedy at the air races, and not only did it in a fashion that was unprecedented, has brought not only national but international acclaim to this region for their service, and then didn't stop there. Went on and took care of the Collin and the Washoe fires with the same diligence. And it's with those employees that are being leveraged at this point in time. And we would like to request that upon review of this plan, that the council take two possible actions. One with respect to the financials and the mutual aid or automatic aid that the chief spoke of. It's certainly above our pay grade. We go where we're told to go. We do what we're told to do. You have one of the finest fire departments and the finest services to the community, and that will continue to the citizens of Reno. We will go and do as we are ordered to do, and we assume that the automatic aid agreements will be finalized in a way that's beneficial to the citizens. That's fine, and we agree with that. The other section is to separate out any personnel issues from those agreements. These folks have served honorably, and they deserve to be remain the citizens or the servants of Reno, which is their first desire, and we do appreciate, and they do appreciate formally every effort that this council has made to make that a continuation, although we do understand that there are financial constraints, and that may not occur. We may lose some of our dedicated people. And I can only ask you on their behalf that if that is to be the case, that the council continue to compel the county to accept them in an honorable fashion, reminiscent of how they have served, and not tie them to any kind of a deal in any way. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Guston?
You know, Mr. Mayor,
I guess I didn't look to the left. I'm sorry, sir.
it's okay. I want to defer my comments. I want to hear what the cliff notes that Mr. Haschef has to your speech.
Well, first of all, I think the staff, the firefighters, everybody that was part of that process, everybody went to the table in good faith, I think, try to work something out and build consensus and really keep the consolidated fire department together, because we all know that benefits the community. It far exceeds the benefits the community staying together than it is having two stand-up fire departments, irrespective of the financials. And I think what it really came down with the county is they looked at what it costs them to do the consolidated fire department and what it costs them to do their own fire department, and they concluded that it's cheaper to do their own fire department. However, they had a lot of assumptions in there that if they're not true, and that's very possible, then it's going to cost them more money to do the stand-up fire department. And I think that's what we tried to impress upon the county. And the other issue, which I think was mentioned and should not be lost, is putting the financials aside, what's best for the community. And some of the firefighters and the chief just spoke to that issue. It's the level of service. You keep all those firefighters in place so you can provide the level of service that you did for the Collin Fire and for the Washoe Fire and the air races. I mean, I think that intangible is the most important part of all of this, and it just got mired into the financial part, which really, if those assumptions are wrong, the county's going to be wrong on what it's going to cost to do their stand-up fire department. And then the other piece of this is that there was a deficit when we looked at the numbers, but I think that the other piece that I think the county really has not thought through is that deficit gets worked off. That number gets worked to zero because we keep the efficiencies with a consolidated fire department and the ability to basically take that deficit, run it to zero eventually over a relatively short period of time, and then potentially continue with those efficiencies to develop almost a profit center by keeping the fire department consolidated, for the very reasons the chief said, because now you have to set up their own prevention department. There are all these costs that the county is going to have to do, and even with their own stand-up fire department, they're not going to be able to provide the level of service that they would be able to provide if we stayed together. So I think those are just kind of my basic comments as to why the county did what they did. And I mean, I'm still hopeful if we have a joint meeting that I think Commissioner Chung and Commissioner Larkin kind of understood the points because they were part of the group that tried to keep this thing together. And really, if the others had the benefit or wanted to receive the benefit of the information that we had, they would have come to a different conclusion.
Okay. You're a lot more eloquent than I am.
Well, it's all based on assumptions, Mr. Mayor. If the
That's right.
assumptions are wrong,
It's all
I
based
mean,
on
they're really making a huge mistake.
All right, any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, you had talked about it, and Councilman Haschef and yourself, and wanted to find out from 731 what exactly, because that came down to it, was the offer to the county.
Again, Dennis Jacobson, President of Local 731. Well, officially, the offer to the county, again, I want to make clear, it was not a 731 offer or a union offer. It was a collective workshop of all of the fire professionals and management to try to solve this issue. The offer came down to taking what, at face value, what were the three fiscal budgets proposed for next year, the Truckee Meadows budget, the Sierra Fire budget, and our current budget. Combining them, looking at the staff that we had available, because we did not want to lay off any single firefighter, and of course, opening up the stations that we needed to open in a 4-man capacity. Those are the prerequisites, along with flexibility for our chiefs and our management to be able to staff where necessary, when necessary, depending on the threat level. Those are the conditions given to this workshop. We met, and over a period of approximately 2 weeks, once we received the numbers, worked with, again, Sierra Fire's management, Sierra Fire's local, and everybody, and came up with it was a one-page financial plan, which at the end of it all, Councilman Haschef indicated, we had a $2.1 million deficit, which we offset not by taking any reserves from any count anywhere on the county side, but by just reallocating payments to savings accounts. In other words, reducing some of the input into their savings accounts and realigning it with their current budget. And as we said, we believe that was a one-time occurrence to cover that $2.1 million, that as soon as we started realizing the economy of scale, which is proven over this past 12 years. As we recall, those of us who were here when the consolidation happened, it was originally intended to, proposed to save $1 million a year over 5 years, total of $5 million. It has been in approximately 400% of that consistently for 12 years. Those same factors are in play here, and thusly we believe that $1.2 million probably wouldn't have existed through the first fiscal year, definitely not into the second fiscal year.
So essentially, you guys looked at it even with Sierra Fire involved?
Yes, ma'am.
Based on what the revenue projections were from the county and in the city as well, and believe that you can make the whole structure work?
Yes, Councilman. Frankly, what we did was...
Without costing any more money than what everyone's paying right now?
Absolutely true. What we did was create a functional model of a regional fire department. The legislature would have to convene and actually change some tax districts, as you know, on the legal side to make a true regional model, but that is beyond anything that we control. We created a functional, immediately operational model with existing funding.
Okay, that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Dennis, why don't you, of that little study that was done during those meetings we were having, make sure the council gets a copy of the study that we looked at and we talked about, the report, so that they have it, they can review it, and they can see for themselves.
I would be very happy to, sir.
Okay, I'd appreciate it. Anything else? Mr. Guston.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have some comments, and Dennis, you may stay there if you wish. That, being on this council for 7+ years, and the other council member, I think, share my same sentiments, and we've never been rock throwers. But, this is the most dysfunctional negotiation that I've seen in my personal life, business life, and here as a elected official. When we first met, when you were the new president of the union, you said you would work with the city, and with you and Chief Hernandez, who's done a marvelous job in bringing both sides together and coordinating. You two have worked together very well, and I just want you to know that we're very appreciative of where you and 731 and other people are going. I think you truly have the best interest of the city, the citizens and everybody else, and the performance when you were called upon, your people were called upon, your men and women were called upon, and the disasters we've had. I don't know how anybody could have done any more than you did. So I will say that to you. And I think you're trying to do the right thing in what we're trying to do with the county right now. I would say to Mr. Roskamp, I did TiVo that yesterday because I wanted to see what was going on. And I have two things to say to you. First, the word despicable may be the word you want to use. And secondly, that your public comment, I thought, was right on the money. You got the points. I know you had them written down because you got through them as quickly as you could, but you delivered, I think, spot on. You're right on the point for that. So with Chief Hernandez, and I think the respect that the union has for you and vice versa, this city has been much better off. I would just, it's disastrously for me to think that there would be, that group of men and women would be reduced by 80 people. Just don't know how you explain that to the people out there who rely on what you do. So I just want to say that, Mr. Mayor, thank you for your passion, and Councilman Haschef, Councilwoman Zadra, and Councilman Ayazi, who have tried to work this through the last few months. You've done what you can do, and I just think that it's despicable that we can't get to the point where the people are the most important rather than the personalities. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman. On behalf of all of my members, I appreciate your kind words.
Any other comments? Ms. Safraza.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, one thing here is, and I don't know if this was discussed, but I think just the magnitude of this deconsolidation, and going back to what Councilman Zadra said about 100 days, I mean, I think we need more time. I mean, based on what the county, we don't even have that information, how they're going to respond. And I think we should potentially ask the county, I mean, because I agree with Councilman Guston, total dysfunction.
That's right.
And this isn't the way you, I mean, we're dealing with public safety here. This isn't the way you do a negotiation, by one side refusing to come to the table and meet. We've been asking, now we're down to the deadline. We've been asking for over a year, Mr. Mayor. Doesn't look like on the March 19th, we've tried to move forward and have these meetings in public to have the conversation so everyone knows what's going on. I just think in the best interest of public safety, maybe that's an element we should be looking at with the county, because I think this, what they're doing is going to have horrifying consequences. And I mean, I use that word to what the fire service is going to be in this community. And it touched on it briefly, but the 4-man engine crews, I mean, you could be talking about response times over 20 minutes, maybe a half hour even, to some of these unincorporated areas for a structure fire. And so I think just throwing this all together, and really this is more so, Mr. Mayor, in the spirit of regional cooperation, is to see on that extension. I realize we're moving forward, but this is just wrong, the wrong way to go for the community all the way around.
Well,
It's just
we've
terrible.
asked them for those extensions. We've asked them to postpone it. They've said no, they're going ahead, they're going to make decisions. They said they weren't going to hire a chief, then they went out and hired a chief, and they did different things. And so I feel that as long as our chief is setting up to take care of the city of Reno, and we go out and do the informational meetings with the Collin Ranch and Hidden Valley and the different areas and let them know what's going on, then it's up to them to talk to their commissioners and things. If they want to sit down and work it on a daily basis, but right now it's all their stuff in the back room, and then when we ask them a question, they won't answer our question. They won't come out. So I'm really tired of playing games. We've spent over a month with them trying to get something. We came up with a mutual agreement that everybody had a voice in, and there was one individual there that was going to kill the project, did any way she could. So I just think that it's time to see what they want to play and how they want to play it, and we go from there. But other than that, we will protect the citizens of Reno and make it happen. So I don't want to, I personally would be against any extensions at this time until they show some good faith in what they want to do, because I don't think they've shown the good faith. They've made derogatory comments about the city. They're the ones that have financial problems. We have some bond problems. They've got financial problems. I listed 5 or 6 of them right there. And so they're the ones that are in financial trouble, not us. Anybody got anything else? Ms. Zadra?
Mr. Mayor, Jessica, I can certainly understand your anxiety, because I think it's shared for all of us, for every one of our employees. We understand the huge risk and hole of service capabilities that has not been filled in. And we've asked at the Fire Advisory Board, since we got this word last June or whenever it was that we got the word from the county that they wanted a divorce, we haven't even had the last 2 Fire Advisory Board meetings. There has not been a quorum. So there just isn't a willingness at this point for the county to step forward and share information with us, details with us, any more than they appear to be willing to share it with the citizens. So we've taken it upon ourselves to go out and talk to those county residents that live in those pockets to make sure they understand. And we've told them more than once, and they still are not even understanding that. And the example I'll use is Collin Ranch. We told them, I don't know, in January when we went and visited with them, that they could have 15 to 20-minute away service. And they said, but what about the station on Mayberry? It's because the citizens have just experienced the interlocal service, and they've seen the response come from Mayberry again and again, and they don't understand that one is city and one is county. And they shouldn't have to understand that, because we really should be one. The reality is the county has made a decision that we're not, and we have a very responsible professional team who's brought us recommendations so that we have solutions for the citizens that we're responsible to. We're responsible to every citizen in this community from a humanistic standpoint. We truly are. And that's how the county built their plan. They just figured that the city's going to continue to provide service to anybody and everybody, and they just don't want to have to pay for it like they have been in the past. So
Well,
they
they
built
got
their plan
financial
on
troubles. They
they
can't
built their
afford to.
plan on presumptions that may not be able to be met, likely cannot be met. The reality is we'll be able to move forward and service all of our people within a reasonable time frame. And if there are no other comments, I would move that, Chief, we accept your recommendations that you presented to us, and that you do indeed go out and finalize that mutual aid agreement, and that there not be that you initiate nothing immediately until you get the details that you need so that you can respond responsibly and bring that back to us. That we do indeed give notice that the 1991 mutual aid agreement is void, null and void. That we do give notice that we will vacate Station 14 within 90 days, certainly by July 1, and we'll be up and operating in another location as Station 12. That you do determine the auto aid policy. We give you direction to move forward with that. And that you do adopt a 12-hour service limit, excluding the agreement with our federal partners.
Understood.
Motion second. Chief, was that mutual aid agreement or was that auto aid agreement?
These are mutual aid agreements with our
mutual.
federal and state partners, Bureau of Land Management.
Okay, we're going to do that with those guys.
Correct.
But what about that auto aid thing that was from 91?
No auto aid.
No auto aid,
No.
okay, okay.
No,
Mr.
that
Mayor.
was in there.
Yes, sir.
Manager Klinger, if I could, again, for the record, Mike Hernandez, I'm going to look to legal because this staff report was drafted prior to the county submitting this offer, and I'm not sure if my staff report covers the offer that was extended from the county, or would that have to come back, or?
Tracy Chase, Reno City Attorney's Office. The agenda item allows you to give direction. I mean, at this point in time, the staff report indicated that the chief was seeking direction on whether or not to enter into auto aid contract. I don't think the motion even addresses the county proposal at this time, so I think it's okay. One thing that you might want to clarify is that I do believe the chief indicated that he does feel comfortable with the city of Sparks in proceeding with more of an auto aid with that jurisdiction, and I wouldn't want the motion to be confused in that way because he understands the
point.
resources that the city of Sparks is bringing to the table. So,
The city of Sparks has been great to work with, and you know. Yes, Mr. President, or Mr. Dortch, do you have something, Mr. Guston? Huh?
Was there a second?
Yes, there was a motion and a second.
Yeah, just, Mr. Mayor, I think what's changed, though, in this period of time is that I think it's got to be pointed out to the public that there is an offer to do a regional service model within the existing resources. So I watched the meeting yesterday with the county, and they kept saying, oh, we want to work towards a regional service model. Well, we have an offer to do a regional service model with the existing resources. So I think that's got to be pointed out, Mr. Mayor, as we move forward with this discussion, is that based on the meetings that you and Councilman Haschef had, that is there.
Well, we talked about the regionalization of it. We talked about creating it, talking about taking maybe, they wanted to take a year, it would take 6 weeks to sit down and meet daily until you put it together. And everything, it's all there to take it. You got the two biggest entities right now. You got to bring Sierra. So figure out how you address the problem with Sierra and bring it on in, and then put a JPA together and we're off and running. But what they're doing is setting back regionalization probably 10 or 15 years, because this is not, there won't be a trust factor going forward for anybody to work on. Yes.
Mr. Mayor, let me just ask a question, because I second the motion. Does taking the automatic aid off the table all the way, does that go back to what the two gentlemen from 731 talked about, not making the employees political pawns?
Councilmember Guston, for the record, Mike Hernandez. I've been in the fire service 30 years. I've never entered into an automatic aid agreement where there was an external condition such as employees, or it's always been a like service
Okay.
exchange for like service.
So it doesn't hurt it then, okay.
So, yes. And then speaking to Councilmember Safraza, this was a group effort. We had an extremely short time frame. I believe we had something like 15 days, and this was an extraordinary group. We had representatives from Sierra, of course, the leadership team from Reno Fire, our financial analysts, Honorable Mayor, Councilmember Hashep, and two members from the County Commission. We sat down with the end goal of a regionalized department, no layoffs, and the continuation of service delivery. And that was our common denominator, is the continuation of service delivery to the community. My only request to the group was that I needed the ability to move assets from one system to another. If we were short in the Sierra Fire Protection District area, I needed the ability to move a Reno employee, so to speak, into the Sierra station. The labor groups figured out a way to do that. Yes, there was a $2.1 million shortfall. There were some methods identified to address that. However, again, the county's position has always been financial sustainability, and that has superseded the idea of public safety. So at the end of the day, they elected to go on their own. And again, we're at a point now where we are 90 days out, a little over 90 days out, and we simply do not have the luxury of time. We need to build my system in the south, my system in the north, and our focus will be the citizens of Reno. They will receive the highest level of service. They will continue to receive that level of service that they've come to expect. Unfortunately, we will have to tell some of the unincorporated areas that no, we cannot come, and that it's a hard statement to make, but that's where we are at this point. I hope that there is light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. I hope that at the 12th hour or the 11th hour, we reach some type of an accord. As the chief, we're in the business of protecting and saving property and lives, and we are moving, in my opinion, backwards.
Well, I don't think we can keep negotiating with a ghost, and as long as we're negotiating with a ghost, we're going to have these problems, and we're not going to solve anything. So we're hoping that they'll want to sit down, but if they don't, then we're prepared to move forward.
Maybe part of the problem, Mr. Mayor, is we've called this a divorce, and so they're behaving, the county is behaving like many couples do when they get a divorce, and put the children right in the middle of the bargaining table, and that's what they're doing with the employees.
I didn't realize any of them had been through it. Okay. I have a motion and I have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Those that oppose, no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you,
Thank you, Mr.
Chief.
Mayor.
Good report.